I'm going to talk a bit about maintenance on this clock. The finish doesn't need any re-oiling or anything added to it ever. It's finished with a thin coat of polyurethane varnish, which will last a very long time. Now with regard to lubrication, there's nothing that needs to be done on any kind of a regular basis. The pivots, you know, the shafts that the wheels run on, like right down here, they're made of lignum vitae, which is a self-lubricating wood. It's naturally oily, and then I've also lubricated them with graphite inside, within the hole here, and that is really permanent lubrication that will last for many, many decades. Also, that's true of these escapement pallets. I guess they would be the feet on the ends of the legs here. They are lignum vitae, self-lubricating, very, very dense, naturally oily wood. The only lubricating that it may possibly need, and likely will never need, is something that I do with, I use pure silicone, and the way you know that you may want to do that is if the clock stops and there's no apparent explanation for it. I did mention before about balancing the little weight out on the end of the pendulum to get the legs lifting up in an equal amount to balance it. But if it still sometimes just stops mysteriously, or if you notice that the pendulum isn't swinging as far, you know, it's just maybe going like that and lifting up just a little bit on both sides. So it just doesn't have quite the healthy wide swing that it should have. That's probably due to extreme humidity is what usually causes it. It might raise the fibers in the wood slightly, or just some other aspect of the surface of the surfaces may cause a little bit of kind of drag on them. And the place where that happens is on the outer edge of this wheel. You can see as it's running, this foot here comes down and slides along, it skims along the edge of that wheel. Same on the other side. And if it's really humid, sticky weather, I've noticed that that can cause extra drag on the pendulum and make it kind of slow down and not swing as far. So then what I do is I get some pure silicone spray, like this here in the can. You can get it at probably any hardware store. And then spray it onto something like a cotton swab, it could be, or I use like an applicator like this. So I just spray it onto that. I'll show you here. And then you dab it around on the outer edge of this wheel. You can just let the clock run, and as it's running, it'll take you 3 minutes. Then if you just keep going along like this, you'll have to spray it on again, probably, especially if you're using a cotton swab. But just put that on that flat surface on the outer rim of the wheel, and that really makes it more slick and smooth, or it just reduces friction so that the pendulum has a wider swing. And while you're at it, you may as well put some on these gear teeth here. You don't need to put it all the way around on the main wheel, but if you put it on these gear teeth, that can reduce the friction somewhat too. Just put it on like that. I guess it's a little out of focus here. There we go. Yeah, just put it on these 6 teeth here. And that's really all the lubrication it needs. And it probably doesn't need. It's only in certain climates, in certain places or times of the year. If it's extremely wet and humid in the air, then that may be necessary. And of course the other maintenance is simply dusting. And I just use an old t-shirt. I just use a cotton cloth and go around and wipe down all the surfaces. And you gotta kind of get it in behind places. And if you don't need to be afraid of just grabbing onto the gears like that. As long as you don't try to turn them really hard or move them one way or another. But if you just grab onto them, that will be fine. If you're dusting these escapement levers ever, just be careful. Just hang on to the gear so that it doesn't start spinning like that. You don't want it to start spinning, because then if something comes down and catches on it, it could break something. So just grab onto it. Probably in the more intricate, tinier spaces, it's probably better to use something like a feather duster or a fine brush, perhaps, too. And that's it for maintenance.